before alarm clocks sat beside our beds, before smartphones buzzed on our nightstands, before digital assistants gently informed us that it was time to wake up, there was another solution. If you needed to be awake at 6 in the morning, you could pay another human being to stand outside your window before dawn and knock until you got out of bed. As strange as that sounds today, it was once a perfectly normal service. Entire neighborhoods expected it. Factories depended on it. Workers trusted their livelihoods to it. For decades, industrial cities across Britain and Ireland woke up not because of machines, but because somebody walked through dark streets carrying a stick. This was not a joke. It was not a temporary wartime measure. It was an actual profession. And then, almost without anyone noticing, it vanished. This is the forgotten history of the knocker-uppers. To understand why knocker-uppers existed, we first need to understand something that modern people rarely think about. For most of human history, precise time simply did not matter very much. For thousands of years, people organized their lives around nature. Farmers woke with the sunrise. Animals needed feeding when daylight arrived. Markets opened when enough people gathered. Work ended when darkness made further labor impossible. Time existed, but it was flexible. The sun was the clock. The seasons were the calendar. If a farmer started work 30 minutes later than usual, very little changed. The crops did not care. The chickens did not complain. Nature operated on rhythms, not schedules. Even in towns and cities, life moved according to general expectations rather than exact minutes. Church bells might signal morning prayers, town clocks might announce the hour. But very few ordinary people owned watches. Fewer still needed them. Being early morning was usually precise enough. Then everything changed. The Industrial Revolution fundamentally altered humanity's relationship with time. Factories could not operate according to sunrise at sunset. Machines required coordination. Steam engines required operators. Assembly lines required workers to arrive together. If one machine operator was missing, an entire section of production could slow down or stop. Suddenly, punctuality became an economic necessity. The clock became more important than the weather. The factory whistle became more powerful than the sunrise. Workers were expected to arrive not simply in the morning, but at 6 o'clock sharp, or 5:30, or 6:15. Exact times became part of everyday life. This was a revolutionary idea. Entire generations had to learn how to live according to the clock rather than according to daylight. And failing to adapt came with consequences. A late worker could lose wages. Repeated lateness could lead to dismissal. For families living week to week, missing a day's pay could mean missing meals. Being on time was no longer a matter of discipline or reputation. It had become a matter of survival. Unfortunately, there was a problem. Reliable alarm clocks barely existed. The first mechanical alarm clocks had appeared centuries earlier, but they were expensive luxury items. Many could only ring at a single fixed hour. Others were notoriously unreliable. Some simply stopped during the night. Others drifted minutes or even hours away from the correct time. Even if they worked perfectly, most working-class families could not afford one. In industrial cities, thousands of workers face the same challenge every single day. How do you wake up at exactly the right time if you cannot trust yourself to wake naturally and cannot afford a machine to do it for you? Communities solve the problem with an answer that seems almost unbelievable today. They hired people. The profession emerged gradually during the 19th century. No one knows exactly who became the first knocker-upper. The job appeared wherever industrial schedules collided with the lack of affordable alarm technology. Soon the profession spread across factory towns and industrial cities. Entire neighborhoods came to depend upon them. The job itself was simple in theory: wake people up. In practice, however, it demanded reliability, patience, and extraordinary dedication. A knocker-upper's workday began when everyone else's night was still continuing. They rose long before their customers did. They stepped into streets that were silent, cold, and dark. Then they began their rounds. The tools of the profession varied. Some knocker-uppers carried long bamboo poles capable of reaching second-story windows. Others preferred wooden sticks or short batons. Some used lightweight fishing rods. A few used small hammers for lower windows. Perhaps the most famous tool was the pea shooter. By blowing dried peas through long tubes, skilled knocker-uppers could strike upper-story windows with impressive accuracy. This method had advantages. It allowed them to wake customers without disturbing entire neighborhoods. A stick hitting glass echoed through the street. A dried pea hitting a bedroom window often woke only the intended target. The work demanded surprising skill. Missing a target window could wake neighbors instead. Hitting too softly achieved nothing. Hitting too hard risked damaging glass. Some knocker-uppers reportedly became remarkably accurate marksmen after years of practice. Their aim was good enough to wake specific customers in rows of nearly identical houses before sunrise. But waking somebody up was only part of the job. The truly important part was proving that they were awake. This was where trust entered the profession. A single knock was not enough. A customer paying for the service expected results. Knocker-uppers remained outside until they received confirmation. Sometimes a customer opened the curtains. Sometimes they waved from the window. Sometimes they shouted down to the street. Sometimes a lamp lit inside the room. Only then would the knocker-upper move on. If there was no response, they kept trying. Again and again and again. A stubborn sleeper could delay an entire route. But failure was not acceptable. The customer was paying to be awake, not merely to hear knocking. The importance of this responsibility cannot be overstated. Modern workers often have multiple alarms. They have smartphones, smartwatches, backup devices, family members, electricity, battery power, automatic updates synchronized with atomic clocks. Industrial workers had none of these things. For some customers, the knocker-upper represented the only safeguard against disaster. Missing work could mean losing pay. Missing too many shifts could mean losing employment entirely. A single missed morning might affect an entire household budget. In that context, the knocker-upper was not selling convenience. They were selling security. They were selling reliability. In many cases, they were protecting families from financial hardship. Some knocker-uppers developed strong relationships with the people they served. They knew who was a heavy sleeper. They knew which customers worked night shifts. They knew which windows required extra effort during winter. Many served the same homes for years. Regular routes developed. Regular customers paid weekly fees. The profession became surprisingly organized. Some workers built respectable incomes from their morning rounds. Others performed the service as secondary employment. Police officers occasionally worked as knocker-uppers after finishing overnight duties. Factory workers sometimes woke neighbors before beginning their own shifts. In certain communities, elderly residents earned extra income through the work. The profession adapted itself to local circumstances. What mattered was reliability. Competition existed as well. Industrial cities contained thousands of potential customers. Successful knocker-uppers built reputations. A worker who repeatedly failed to wake customers quickly lost business. Reliable knocker-uppers gained new clients through word of mouth. Some routes became valuable enough to protect from competitors. In a strange way, these early wake-up services operated much like modern subscription businesses. Customers paid recurring fees. The service operated daily. Reliability determined success. Customer retention mattered. The business model would be instantly recognizable today. The profession also reveals something fascinating about industrial society. Factories are often remembered as places of machines, steam engines, steel production, mechanical looms, coal furnaces. Yet beneath all that machinery stood invisible networks of human labor supporting the system. Someone delivered coal, someone maintained equipment, someone cleaned workshops, someone lit street lamps, someone connected telephone calls, and someone walked through dark streets making sure workers woke up on time. Industrial civilization depended upon countless jobs that modern people never think about. The knocker-upper was one small but essential component in a much larger machine. Morning rounds could be difficult. Winter was particularly harsh. Imagine walking through icy streets before sunrise while rain or snow covered the roads. Imagine standing outside waiting for responses while freezing winds move through narrow industrial neighborhoods. Yet the work continued. Factories did not stop because of bad weather. Neither could the people responsible for waking their workers. The profession demanded consistency. Customers expected the same service every day, regardless of conditions. Reliability was everything. A knocker-upper who stayed home because it was cold was unlikely to remain employed for long. As decades passed, however, a threat began approaching. Ironically, it came in the form of another machine designed to solve the exact same problem. Alarm clocks improved. Manufacturing methods reduced costs. Mass production increased availability. Mechanical clocks became more accurate, more dependable, more affordable. Gradually, the economics began changing. A family that once had no choice but to hire a knocker-upper could now purchase an alarm clock that might last for years. The machine required no weekly payments. It never caught a cold. It never retired. It never moved away. Most importantly, it was always available. Technology had begun replacing labor. The process was slow at first. Many workers continued using knocker-uppers as backup systems. Others simply trusted human beings more than machines. This hesitation was understandable. Early alarm clocks occasionally failed. Human beings had reputations, machines did not. For a period of time, both systems existed together. Some households owned alarm clocks while still paying for a knock on the window just in case. The overlap lasted years, but eventually economics won. Machines became better, cheaper, more reliable. The advantages of human alarm services slowly disappeared. Then electricity accelerated everything. Electric alarm clocks entered homes during the early 20th century. They offered increasing accuracy and convenience. Mass manufacturing reduced prices even further. The market for human wake-up services collapsed. Neighborhood by neighborhood, route by route, the profession faded away. There were no major protests, no public campaigns, no dramatic final days. Customers simply stopped renewing their arrangements. The windows remained silent. The sticks disappeared. The profession ended not with an announcement, but with absence. By the 1940s, knocker-uppers had largely vanished from daily life. A profession that had once helped power industrial society simply ceased to exist. Many former knocker-uppers moved into other work. Others retired. Their disappearance barely entered historical memory. The world moved on. Technology had solved the problem more efficiently. The transition seemed natural, almost inevitable, and perhaps that is why the profession is so easily forgotten today. Yet the story of the knocker-upper is not unique. History is full of occupations erased by technology. Lamplighters disappeared when cities adopted electric street lighting. Switchboard operators vanished as telephone systems automated connections. Ice cutters became unnecessary after refrigeration entered ordinary homes. Elevator operators disappeared once automatic controls improved. Human computers gave way to electronic computers. Each transition followed a familiar pattern. A task that once required people becomes automated. The new technology seems expensive at first, then it becomes cheaper, more reliable, more common. Eventually, the old profession survives only in photographs and memories. The pattern continues today. Modern algorithms perform work once completed by accountants, translators, and customer service representatives. Self-checkout machines reduce cashier positions. Navigation systems replace certain tasks once performed by mapmakers and dispatchers. Artificial intelligence is beginning to automate professions that many believed would remain uniquely human. The story of the knocker-upper feels surprisingly modern because we are living through similar transitions ourselves. Technology continues replacing small tasks one at a time. Sometimes we notice, sometimes we do not. Perhaps that is the most fascinating lesson hidden within this forgotten profession. History is not only made by kings, presidents, generals, and inventors. History is also made by systems, invisible systems, daily routines that become so ordinary that nobody notices them until they disappear. For several generations, entire industrial cities depended on strangers walking through darkness carrying sticks. Millions of mornings began because someone knocked on glass. An entire profession existed to bridge the gap between human sleep and industrial schedules. Then technology quietly removed the need. The system vanished, the world adapted, and most people forgot it had ever existed. Today, your phone wakes you with music, with vibrations, with personalized tones, with weather reports and calendar reminders. Some devices slowly brighten the room to imitate sunrise. Others monitor your sleep cycle and attempt to wake you at the perfect moment. The technology is extraordinary, yet beneath all those innovations lies exactly the same problem faced by factory workers 2 centuries ago. Tomorrow morning you still need to wake up on time. Only the method has changed. And somewhere in history, before digital assistants and electric clocks and smartphones existed, another human being stood outside in the cold before dawn, waiting patiently beneath a window, watching for movement, waiting for a light, listening for a voice, making sure a stranger did not lose their job. One knock at a time. History is not only the story of wars and empires. Sometimes it is the story of a person carrying a stick through dark streets before sunrise. Sometimes it is the story of ordinary people performing extraordinary tasks so quietly that history almost forgets they were ever there. The knocker-uppers were one of those stories. For a brief moment in time, they woke up the industrial world. If you enjoyed this episode of Hidden History, Subscribe for more forgotten stories hiding inside everyday life. Because sometimes the smallest inventions change the world the most. And sometimes the most important jobs are the ones that disappear so quietly that we forget they ever existed. Next time on Hidden History, the surprising, uncomfortable, and unexpectedly global history of toilet paper.